And the big thing that was really like never in a million years realized is how different weather conditions are in terms of severity, how
Mm,
quick onset they can be when you're just that much closer to the source. I'm used to sea level.
right.
We're 14,000 feet closer to the origin of that raindrop, to that lightning, to that, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so we get close to the summit of Mount Pasachoa, again, 14-ish thousand feet. And they start getting some like, I think we're getting some weather. We're just going to go ahead and call it here. We've got what we need out of this. And so we're on our way down and we're just like, we're cruising, everyone's having a good time. We had a couple of people get a little bit of altitude sickness and that was it. And so we're going and but we're not really that close to done coming down. And it just opens up. It goes from like, we're good. It is pouring rain. And about 2 seconds later, it is hammering us with hail to the point that it's hitting the ground, coming back up and hitting me in
Oh
the
my
face.
God.
So feel me when I bring it, singing loud. I'm from the loot and I'm proud. Run a mile for the cause. I'm right.
Hi, guys. It's your girl, Nechama, your favorite Jew from the Lou. Welcome back to my podcast. And today I'm really excited to have my very first repeat guest.
Oh,
You're
nice.
the first one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of holding off doing repeat guests because I have so many people who I want to interview.
Hmm.
But recently, watching your Instagram stories and your posts, I'm like, I have to. Like, while it's still fresh too, that's when like the momentum and the passion is
Oh,
there.
absolutely.
So I was like, I have to call back and just be like, let's do this.
Yes, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. So everyone, if you haven't already heard, this is Sam Schaefer. He's already been on, and I believe it was episode 17.
That sounds right, actually.
Yeah. And this is going to be episode 29.
All right.
And it's been a year since
Since
we've recorded.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I would love to do, I'm going to, post the old episode on Instagram so people can refer back and you don't have to
Mhm.
go through a whole spiel of like your story
Oh,
again.
fantastic.
But if you don't mind giving like
The
a
elevator pitch.
little
The,
elevator pitch of
the
who you
elevator.
are and
All
all
right.
that.
From the elevator pitch standpoint, the story really kind of started when I was active duty in the Air Force. I had left college and decided to pursue a career in special operations in the United States Air Force in the combat control training pipeline. And unfortunately, in September of 2011, sustained a nerve condition through an injury on a run, tripped and fell, and ended up with a nerve condition that had an extremely low probability of happening, but I was the one. It's
Mm-hmm.
called complex regional pain syndrome. That led to my discharge and a massive deterioration in my quality of life, and that went on for 9 years before just enough was enough. And my last opportunity to get out of pain was an amputation. So I elected for an amputation that occurred August 26th of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up that evening from the surgery out of pain for the first moment in 9 years. And to be honest, it's been all forward ever since. I got that massive roadblock out of the way.
Yeah.
I think kind of the big moral of the story or the big recurring theme has been the tools that I developed to survive under those conditions, I've continued to use to thrive without that roadblock in the way.
You have. And I'm not gonna lie, like just before this episode, I was re-listening to our episode and I was like, it's such a different experience listening as a consumer versus
Hmm.
like editing or being here in person because I really get to hear the back and forth dynamic. And I
Yes,
was like, there's so much to your story that is so relatable and so helpful for everyone. And it was really cool. But you've done a lot this year.
it's been
A lot.
it's been a busy one. 2024, I came in, I was like, you know what? We're definitely making this year count. And we are very beginning of November.
Hmm.
And I feel like I need a 2 month deload to
Yeah.
get into
Just to
2025.
relax, enjoy the holidays with your
Yes,
family. Yeah.
it's been
Because
busy.
I feel like the two main highlights that really stand out to me was the kickboxing.
I fought in February.
That was so cool. It
Yes, it
was
was.
so cool watching you train and like all those videos. Because I know we'd mentioned in our last episode that you were a kickboxing fan. That was how you and Hyen
Yes.
like even met.
Yeah, she pretended she wanted to watch a boxing match
Right.
that I was gonna go watch.
Yeah. So it's like so cool that like as someone who was a fan, you got to participate in it.
Yes, I got
So
to have the real world experience, and
yeah.
that's just honestly become one of the big things in like the media that if I choose to consume it,
Mm-hmm.
I can only watch it for so long before
Mm-hmm.
I need to feel the real feel. I don't want to interpret based on nothing.
Right.
I've gotten into like I love the interview show Hot Ones. I do not care for interview shows in general. Like I love listening to podcasts, but I
Right.
don't necessarily enjoy watching interview shows. Hot
Right.
Ones is very interesting. Honestly, he's just a great interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
But then they've got the shtick of the hot wings. I just got to a point. It's like I have to know what these are like,
Yeah.
and so I've actually I've gotten into spicy food and sauces, and because I want to be able to watch it. Like I want to understand what's happening versus
Mm-hmm.
just going, "Oh, they're crying again." You
Right.
see, there's always that person's in the comment section always, and
Right.
like they've gone nowhere, done nothing. I was like, that's also, I mean, that's what led me into the military a little bit. Like one school was very much boring me, and I could tell that it was not taking me. Within 3 semesters, I could tell the closer I got to the degree, the further away from something it seemed like something I wanted or a path I
Right.
wanted to be on. Between the students, the teachers, just wasn't my thing, and that led to me leaving and finding an alternative, which was the military. So like I said, I've gotten into like hot food and hot sauces, and and then through me just saying yes to things and letting the universe in on the decision making process,
Mm-hmm.
I ended up started working with fighters, with my strength and conditioning work and the breath coaching and all that sort of stuff that I do. I became a fit at a gym called Church of Jamie,
Yeah.
and as a result, I'm helping these guys get ready to fight.
So cool.
Of course, I couldn't let that experience. I could not pass on the opportunity to have some amount of that experience for myself.
Right.
And so that's kind of what led down that path of me pursuing a fight. And what had happened actually, I just lost my fight actually. That's what
Oh,
happened when we had recorded. I was supposed to
yeah.
have a boxing match, and I found out 2 weeks before that I no longer had an opponent. And actually, I had lost 8 opponents. I had had 8 people accept and then back out.
Do you know why, or is it just random
They
things?
looked me up and decided they didn't want to fight that guy. Um,
Oh,
but I mean, a lot of it was like, well, it's a lose-lose. You got to understand, like, what happens if I lose to an amputee? I was like, you lost to a fighter, dog. Like,
right.
this is fighting. I'm not less.
Yeah.
I've got a different part, but but like for that to mean anything, you have to assume that I'm less of a human being than you, and I'm not.
Right.
And so it's battling that perception makes matchmaking very hard. And so, yeah, I believe we did discuss my desire to get that done and have that life experience. And I kind of was like, well, it's okay. It's a not right now thing. And
You didn't wait that long before
no,
it
no,
happened.
I got a DM. I
Yeah.
got a message from a coach that I had met in the back room at another fight. He was from Ohio. He's like, hey, I got this guy, buddy of mine in Indiana. Has got a promotion. He's got an amputee that's got some boxing matches.
Mm-hmm.
They're interested in you.
That's awesome.
You want to fight? I was like, yes,
Right.
absolutely. I want to
Yep.
fight. And then they were like, hey, we can do kickboxing if you want to do kickboxing. I was like, yes, done. Sign me up, dog. Like that's it. That's because boxing and kickboxing are very different,
Right.
both in how you actually play, how the sport actually plays out when it's done well, but also like the culture. The culture of kickboxing is a lot more for me. Again, boxers are for like you've just got too many. There's too much in the culture that people are like afraid to take a matchup they might lose,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's afraid they might lose that fight to me. And oh man, what is everybody else going to say if I lost to an amputee? Yada yada.
A lot of
And
ego.
a lot of ego.
Yeah.
And kickboxing doesn't have that. Boxing has this point where there's a couple people out there that make s- 8 figures in a fight. They'll make 10 million, 20 million, 50 million to go do one fight. And so everybody thinks that you need to be undefeated to get there. And there's just a couple of people, just a small handful of people that get to make that money.
Right.
Kickboxing doesn't have that. Kickboxing, these guys aren't afraid to go out and lose a fight because at least they got to go fight.
Right.
They're
It's more
they're they're
experience than the win.
they're a little more, the proverbial. They're more dogs. Like, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, there's dogs in boxing,
Right.
but the boxing culture as a whole isn't like that. Kickboxing, they just don't take themselves as serious in a sense. Like, it's just more me. Again, when like in the end, it's just a better match for my personality.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, again, I like how it's contested better. I like that style of combat, and I I've got one, like, I want to use it.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
so yeah, so that opportunity came about literally through Instagram and making friends and being nice to people.
I mean,
Is really what it
honestly,
was. Is
and
like,
putting it out there, like I really, since we met last year, starting in January, I've always been into law of attraction,
mhm.
but I recently got
Did we
into,
get into that in the first episode?
I don't know.
Because I'm also a very
Are
big
you
law. I
really?
am a very big law of attraction. Yeah.
I'm very much into it. And I think one thing I know we definitely touched on last time, and I already could tell this about you anyways, but you're a very big proponent of not being a victim.
Yes.
Like life happens and it doesn't always happen in the way you want it to. And sometimes it seems like everything's against you. But like if you were here, might as well live it to the fullest.
Correct. Play your
Yeah.
hand. You know.
Yeah. And like I think, yeah. And also a big thing that I'm trying to come to terms with also is like being able to be strong and persevere when you're in a planting season. And that's really, really hard when you're putting in the work every single day, but you don't necessarily see the results yet. Whew.
I mean, coming from the coaching side of that, man, I personally believe that's such a big piece of my job
It is.
as the coach is because so most of my work is in the physical realm.
Hmm.
It is strength and conditioning. But I've been gotten into in the last year. I've spent a lot more time doing more like life coaching type work,
Oh, cool.
where I
Yeah.
am spending a lot more time with people on mindset and better goal setting.
Hmm.
Not just like, oh, what's something you'd like to have. Let's actually break these goals down and let's be a little bit more informed. And then we work backwards, and I work with people on that. That's a for
Yeah.
all the different r- arenas that I help people with. A lot of it comes down to better, more intentional goal setting, looking at the reality of it, and then saying yes to the reality of that goal, and not just, do you want your hand raised in a fight? That's not the question. The
Right.
question is, do you want to do the training? Do you want to do the 2-a-days? Do you want to do the weight cut? Do you want to do all
Yeah.
these sorts of things?
The
You
the
have to,
non-glamorous side of it.
these are the questions you're actually answering.
Hmm.
When those decisions come up, that's when you're saying, yes, I want my hand raised at the end of that fight.
Right.
And, working with a lot more, doing like that sort of stuff, I feel like life coaching is such an ill-defined term.
It's pretty
And
vague.
so
Yeah.
people take advantage of it, and there's, everyone loves the 22-year-old who's been working out for 3 years.
Hmm.
It's got life coach in their bio. We all got the same 24. I don't do that. I don't
Right.
tell people what to do. I work with people on how to do it, and and so sometimes that is sets and reps and what they're going to do in the gym, and sometimes I've got athletes where I spend most of our time together, and what we're working on is the things outside the gym that's going to give them the greatest return on investment towards their goals in the gym
Right.
and what they want in the gym to mean. And so like that's like become a huge passion piece of my work because that's where I get my clients are the happiest.
And it's
Those,
so challenging
yes,
being on the opposite end of that, where it's like you do have to start off having this big dream of what you want the end goal to look like because you have to work towards something. But like reverse engineering and breaking it down into those small daily steps towards it and having the patience. Because sometimes what I've found is like those small days where it feels like nothing is happening and you're just so tired and putting in so much work. And then one day an opportunity comes and it just feels like you blew up?
you know what? I had that week this week,
Yeah.
but
Oh, good.
yeah, to kind of tie all that together. But so working in that position, let's just say you're coming to me ground floor.
Yeah.
Everything I give you is going to feel some amount of hard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what you're looking for as the very real human being is that moment where it doesn't feel hard.
Hmm.
We think that that's progress is when gets easy, but
But that's not
that's not
true
how it
in the
works.
gym. Yeah.
It's not in the gym. It's not in life. Again, like how people talk to themselves. Like to work with me,
Ooh,
I
yeah, you're right.
like working with me. I send out a little base Google form. It's got some questions in there.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm looking at the answers, but more than that, I'm looking at what does your language look like because
Mhm.
that actually tells me where we need to work.
Yeah.
Like, are we using absolutes? Are we making a lot of assumptions? Is there a lot of guesses? How are we speaking? Are we negative, positive?
Yeah.
Are we inconsistent? Are we consistent?
You
And,
would
and
love Kabbalah.
it,
That's what I've been getting into.
all right, universe. This is the third time that Kabbalah's.
Do you want me to send you the master class that I took?
Yeah, we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. There's something you and I. There's something you and I are going to talk about when we're. This one it probably doesn't fit into the episode.
It doesn't really matter. We can take it wherever we want to go. Just so you guys know, the whole the big reason why Sam's awesome. I knew we were gonna no matter what, we could talk
I
about
can't. I
anything.
cannot man. I can't believe that this just came up. Like
Serendipitous. I'm very into this stuff, but
it's also the third time
mm,
I've been in a conversation with somebody and they use that word
serendipitous too.
This week.
Wow, I'm telling you, it's just I call it like whispers of the universe.
What
Like
I talk about taking like a little bit of a deload,
yeah,
and what the universe is just screaming at me right now.
they're just like, yeah, that's cute.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, buddy.
Yeah. Your momentum. You can't
Yep.
stop now. Let's go. But no, so I'll give you a little elevator pitch on Kabbalah and how I got into it because we were talking about just before we started recording my addiction to TikTok and Instagram and like the algorithm, right? So I'm scrolling. I love spending time online. I do. Um and so my time online right now is coffee, how to get guys to like you.
You thought the internet was going to tell you the right answer on that one?
No, I mean, at this point, I feel like I've read so many of these articles and watched so many of these dating coaches that like I could be a dating coach. You know what I mean? There's nothing like new that they're
It's
telling
like the
me.
crazy therapist.
Yeah, there's nothing out there that's like new at this point. I've read it all. But whatever, now it's set in the algorithm. So like this is what I'm constantly seeing. And like to be honest, I don't even want to see the dating stuff anymore. But I'm like, so it's coffee, that's something I do want to see. And then also law of attraction stuff, like detachment and all these kinds of things. And so then there was this guy that popped up eventually because they could tell what you're interested in when you're interacting
Mhm.
with. His name is David Guillaume, and he teaches Kabbalah. And he's one of the and he also he and his ex-wife, actually, they just recently separated. They use the liquid multivitamin that I started using that I'm obsessed with. It's called Mary Ruth's liquid multivitamin.
Okay.
And so, anywho, there's a lot of serendipity with that too, in terms of me seeing the product and then me getting introduced to him. But you know how it is with when you're consuming stuff. At first you see and you're like, okay, cool. And then they keep coming back on your feed. And then eventually you start liking it. And then eventually it
Mhm.
really starts to resonate. So you follow them. And then he wrote something on his story about this class that he teaches. And then I ended up taking the class.
In the class. Nice.
So it's all been virtual. I've never sat in a class, but I'm sure that would be even more impactful and powerful.
I mean, Kabbalah's. I don't know much about Kabbalah, but there's like
Yeah.
an energy component of it, correct?
There's 100% an energy component of it. And it's very much like law of attraction was like an introduction. And then I feel like like everything from law of attraction stems from Kabbalah, and Kabbalah is more of a practical, how do we break this down and implement it into our lives?
Mhm.
It's fascinating. So the little elevator pitch is that in this world, everything's energy, and as a soul, you come into this world with certain amounts of challenges that you have to overcome to expand your vessel so that you can receive all the pleasure of this world. And you're supposed to receive everything that you could possibly imagine, and then more so. And the only thing blocking you from receiving all this pleasure is you,
I'm buying.
which I love that
Yep.
because I'm a big proponent. That's why I'm into law of attraction about,
It's interesting. Actually, it's super in line with a lot of Eastern philosophy.
yeah,
You get like more towards like in like the Buddhism and that
Mhm.
direction.
like the Tao Te Ching and like all that
Like,
kind of stuff.
desire
hmm
is the root of all pain.
Right.
Without desire, we have no pain.
But without desire and without pain, we can't grow and change.
Agreed.
So it
Agreed.
all
But
comes
that's it's
together.
that yes, that kind of
It's all
idea.
part of that same concept. And so that's what I was thinking about before when you were saying, because there's like this one liner, there's a few one liners that I just think about on the daily from Kabbalah. And one of them is before the desire comes the fulfillment. So if you feel a desire for something, that means there is a reality out there that you can have it,
Mhm.
which is really comforting and really hard to accept at the same time. But that means that you could have it. But let's say, for example, whatever opportunity you want, it could walk into your life right now. But if you're not the vessel ready to receive it, you're going to fail and you're going to fumble it.
Yep.
So then you have to go through certain challenges to overcome it. So Kabbalah, the way he teaches it, there's many different ways people approach it. But the way he teaches it is like the practical steps on how to do it. So his saying is that like Satan, his purpose is to cause you to be in a reactive state. And like the best analogy is imagine that you're at a red light and you're hitting every red light and you're trying to get to work. you can literally feel yourself getting more upset, getting anxious, getting scared, all these things, right? So any reactive negative energy, that's Satan coming in trying to challenge and test you.
Just go.
Just and what you the
Run the
first
light.
step to do is to pause. That's actually the first step. It's like my friend and I, Sammy, she's coming on. We're gonna have a whole talk
Nice.
about like Kabbalah and stuff like this, but it's just
Now we're starting to intersect into stoicism.
it's literally everything. And so he's like, just
It's
pause.
almost like people are like a lot more similar than they are different.
Oh,
And we just
100%.
go for things and we just go for the same things in slightly different languages.
No, literally,
It's funny, right?
literally. So it's like you just pause and then you say the next level that's even more higher than that is to say after the pause, which is already super powerful. What a pleasure. What a pleasure that I'm going through this challenge because it's going to, and you're accepting it, right? You're accepting that you're going through this because you're like, it's going to help me to elevate. And then I have certainty beyond logic. Love that statement. I have certainty beyond logic that this is going to work out for my ultimate benefit. And I don't know how, and I don't know what that world looks like. I'm not putting that onto the creator or energy or anything, but I just believe that life is working out for me.
If life finds a way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always mean a bad thing.
No. And it just could be different. You never know. And it's just about, and like you can speed up the process. Like maybe you were destined for your soul to go through 5 years of pain, but you can speed it up in 5 minutes just by getting out of being a negative reactor. And this is a practice. I know this is a big word that you love.
Yeah, I love the word
The
practice.
practice,
Yes.
it's a practice because it's so easy. Like there's been times when I was first learning about my mom's like, you're a different human being. Like you're just so much calmer, your energy, just I saw opportunities coming my way, but then I just as easily can snap out of it,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, like,
It's a practice.
and for anyone listening, if any of this is jiving with you and you have not read, listened to, or however, had somebody read it to you, The Alchemist,
It's a
this,
great book. I
this,
love The
we're just,
Alchemist.
we are literally discussing The Alchemist right now.
Hmm.
We're discussing the concepts in the book, The Alchemist
Yeah.
right now.
Have you ever read The Hero's Journey? I think that you should add that to your list. You read
Why?
it?
I know that I'm like, at one point, this was on my reading list. I don't think I
It's
got
a
to it.
very intellectual book. It hurt my brain. I'm not gonna lie.
Sometimes they do that.
I think
When
I
I
need to
read The Body
reread
Keeps the
it.
Score, that book,
Oh, I can't finish it. I'm on chapter one. It made me cry.
that book cracked me open.
Yeah,
She watched me struggle for about a year
I haven't been
with
able to finish it.
everything that I needed to have read that book much slower,
Yeah,
and I did not.
I think
I got
approaching
so into it.
it's hard. I think books like self-development books, this is one thing that I love about 75 Hard, like a takeaway that
Hmm.
I've implemented in my life is whenever there's a self-development book, I'll do 10 pages at a time every day.
Makes it digestible.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah, and there's also like because I think that's also good. One, just to even if it's good,
Hmm.
control is king.
Yep.
You know, control is king, and conscious consumption is important, but also there comes a point where you just become an information junkie, and then there's
Hmm.
no integration of what you're reading,
Because it
what
takes
you're
time.
learning.
Because it's a practice.
Because
Oh,
you're not
also,
practicing anything.
yeah,
You're just consuming because it's giving you that dopamine hit. You're like, oh, that would be so awesome in my life, and then you never come back to it because you're too
100%.
busy finding that next dopamine hit from the next book, and now you've basically read the same self-help book 13 times when you
Hmm.
could have moved on to other directions, but because you spent no time on integration.
Right.
And that's something that I catch myself with. Like, I've done a much better job. About 2 years ago, I started to realize this about myself, that I absolutely have that habit. And it was The Body Keeps the Score actually kind of hit me in the head with a hammer.
Hmm.
Because again, that book cracked me open, and really, I spent about a year struggling with a lot of things. I had just kind of gotten some clarity. I had just gotten out of pain, and I was starting to realize, and it opened my eyes to some of the other stuff in my life that I had been definitely incorrectly reframing as a way to keep myself safe from having to deal with the reality of some of these situations
Yeah.
and things that had happened. And this is a big deal, but it taught me, like, sometimes the best information gets fed to you one spoon at a time. It's
Yeah.
not always doesn't need to come out of the fire hose.
Absolutely. But I could pretty much sum up that book in one sentence, or a few,
Which
I
one?
should say, The Hero's Journey.
Oh,
Basically, he talks about
so we're
how
about 6 books in.
I know, right? He's like, how to become a hero. If you look, once you read this book, it's really interesting to see pretty much every movie every play is all based on this concept
Hmm.
where to become a hero, there is this person who's in this town or little city that they've never really left. And then they're called into the wild. It's the call into the unknown. And then they have to go through all these adventures and journeys only to come full circle and come back to that original village or city or town as the hero. And
Yes.
that's exactly what The Alchemist was when I was reading it. I'm
Hmm.
like, he literally followed. I just spoiled The Alchemist if you haven't read it yet.
Nothing's been spoiled on The Alchemist
That's true. But
because one, The Alchemist is not pretending to be a true story. It is written as a parable,
yeah,
and you, whoever you are listening to this right now, you've already read that basic concept of the story, this hero's journey. So
right.
none of that part of it will be shocking.
What's
Nothing's been ruined.
what's
Read it,
crazy
please.
please read it. What's crazy about The Alchemist is he said that when he first published it, I forgot the period of time, but it wasn't picked up.
No,
And now it's like one of the most well-read things. And I find that
I
so
most
comforting.
translated.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It's so comforting for anyone who has like a product or a business and it feels like no like you have this momentum, right? Like
mhm.
same thing with me with my podcast. I remember because I didn't start it right away in terms of publishing it to the world. I was
Yeah,
building up a library.
yes. Whenever we record, you're like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't know when this is going to go out.
Yeah. And meanwhile, my first episode when it came out, this was August 2023, but I'd started recording the previous March. I thought I was gonna be this viral sensation. Like I was just gonna like
I
pop
mean,
off.
I mean, someone's going to be.
I mean, eventually, I think it will be. There's that momentum where it's gonna look like, oh,
It's gonna,
overnight she popped off. But like,
it's random posts. Like,
it's you never know.
like my buddy Matt's had the same thing happen where like he's put out so much fantastic content
Yeah,
through the Not Dead Yet channel, and then he just had one that just randomly got caught and went wildly viral.
yeah. But it's
It's
only because of all the momentum too.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's reps and reps and reps, and something catches every day.
right.
You just
But
get
what's great is that by the time he got to that viral moment, he has this whole legacy, if you will, of
correct.
content, and
Yep.
he looks legit. You go back, and then all of a sudden, there's like hundreds of millions of people, like liking
Yep.
stuff,
Yeah.
following
Oh
him.
yeah. The page is the page in the group has grown, like
Hmm.
the whole nine. Like exactly. But
You got
yeah,
to start somewhere.
exactly. And it's like you don't get to pick either. Like
Yeah, you
I
don't.
had a random clip of me ice skating,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden I've got like 1,000 followers that are male hockey players up in Canada.
That's so cool.
Because um, hockey podcast I was on shared it.
Yeah.
A hockey personality saw it, shared it,
Hmm.
and then almost every hockey outlet, like hockey media page outside of NHL, picked it up and shared it. Now, like you said, now all of a sudden I've got a follow from all these like 16-year-old guy from Canada, 17-year-old guy from Canada, 12-year-old guy from Canada. I was like,
So
well,
funny.
it was a hockey, it was a random me ice skating with a hockey stick.
Yeah.
And if
You
I don't
just
have
never know.
if I don't have a hockey stick in my hand, maybe I don't get all those follows. It's
And
wild.
meanwhile, you've moved on so much past that and done so much cooler. I mean, that was cool, but like
Yeah.
you've had so many more
More, but oh
experiences.
yeah, and then when I set 5 world records at the Highland Games, that post
Yeah.
went nowhere.
Yeah, that's really cool, honestly. But you
That
just never know.
that literally went nowhere.
Meanwhile, to you, you're like, this is one of the
This
coolest
is cool. Yeah,
experiences
it's
I've
neat,
ever
right?
done. Because you're not really doing it for it, but it is interesting to see like what goes and what doesn't go, and it's hard to know what the rhyme or rhythm is. Like Coca-Cola also in terms from a business perspective, like I read recently that Coca-Cola only sold 25 bottles their first year.
Interesting.
And I'm
Oh, this is back in like the 30s, 40s.
right. And there was cocaine in the original one. So the fact that
Yeah, right.
you think you would think it would be more,
Yeah.
popular.
It got there.
It got there. But I'm like, it was really beneficial for me as like, because also since okay, it's so wild. My whole life has changed since I've last met you as well.
Hmm.
But like when we sat down last, I was just the corporate graphic designer who had this passion project that I thought would like, take off and be
It was
viral.
something you wanted to do.
But now I no longer am a graphic designer. I still would do it freelance, but to be honest, not really. I want to leave that
You would do a
behind.
project.
I would do a project, but really my focus right now is being and growing my coffee business
Mhm.
to the point where I left my corporate job to work as a barista because
to be in the world.
I wanted to everyone and their mother wants to be a coffee shop owner. I'm sure you've seen now that we're talking about
Yes.
this, you will now see it. But like everyone's like, wouldn't it be great? My dream is to just quit my corporate life and then my husband could pay for my failing business where there's like coffee and books and flowers. And this is everyone's social media. And it's like, for me, I was like talking about knowing what that end game was. Like I
Mhm.
had this vision. I know where I want it to go. There's actually a coffee shop out in New York, in Manhattan, in Soho. It's called the Bibliothèque, and I flew out there to see it in person because I had seen it on Instagram. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my vision. Flew out there and I met the owner and I got to like experience it firsthand. It was one of those experiences that was even better than Instagram. And you know, if it's better than Instagram,
Most of the experiences are better than
not
Instagram.
always. Some coffee shops are really good at making their,
Oh, okay,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Generally speaking, though, if you're somebody that doesn't travel, but you follow
Oh, traveling,
99
yeah.
97 travel page, well, you traveled.
I've traveled.
Yeah, you traveled to the shop.
Well, I mean,
What
I
I'm
didn't
saying
say
is the in-person experience is
it's
always better,
always better.
even if you find out the reality is it isn't as sold.
And even when I went there, like I was feeling a little I grew up struggling with like social anxiety and being shy. Now anyone who knows me is like, what are you talking about? Because in my safe inner
Same.
circle,
I was the same.
I'm normal. But like as a grown up, ever since I'm 28, and ever since I was 20, I've taken on that if something scares me within reason, I'm going to do it. And it started off small. When I tell you like the first thing I did was is I went to the grocery store without my mom at 20. And
Mhm.
that was a big deal
Okay.
because I was so nervous.
I mean, you know what I was told by a teacher
Huh.
in middle school? You will n- you are s- you will never be good at public speaking. You need to make sure that that you don't ever get a job that involves public speaking.
What a terrible teacher.
Oh, of course, but I got told it again in high school, so it's even cooler. That won't beat you down. That won't mess with you a little bit.
God.
But yeah, I mean, but some people are so like going back to like strength and conditioning, like there's kind of like there's like this little block, like you can like mix and match, your rows and columns,
Yeah.
and it's like high baseline, low responder, high responder. So
Hmm.
baseline being like where do you start, and responder is like how much progress you tend to make. I was a very low baseline person on a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I've always been a very high responder.
Like
When
if
I
you have no choice.
like I will no, like I will improve a lot with practice.
Okay.
Like some people, they're high baseline and they're low responders. They start off and it's not hard enough for them to be inspired to work hard enough.
Okay.
And so they become low responders to training and they don't progress very far, but they started up here.
I,
Whereas I started
I
down
resonate
here,
with that.
and over time I'm
Yeah.
able, I respond very well to training and practice.
Right.
And that's why one of the reasons why I'm so big with practice, because I've seen so much from that
Yes.
mindset. It's not some hokey tagline. It's based on my personal experience.
Yeah.
And that experience has been with intentional practice,
Mm-hmm.
I will get better.
Yeah.
Also, it's dropping the expectation that I'm owed anything else.
Yeah.
I can practice
100%.
basketball the rest of my life. I can get a perfect nutrition, get perfect strength and conditioning coach, perfect drills. I am not going to the NBA.
Right.
Like as weird as that may sound, at 34 missing a foot, I'm not going to the NBA.
Yeah.
Um,
But just being realistic, but at
but
the same time,
but
not
but
stopping
it's
that.
also understanding, like again, it's kind of you were talking like, I'm just going to share this first podcast, and boom, life is different. That's
Mm-hmm.
an expectation.
It is. But when it didn't happen, I didn't stop.
Correct. And now the question is, y- you're never going to be owed a million download episode.
Right.
But if you keep doing the episodes,
I'll get there.
you can pretty well guarantee that you will get better.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that we're promised. And that to me is very freeing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm trying to do is get better.
Yeah, and there has been improvement. It's been slow improvement, but there is improvement. It is cool to see. I'll listen back to episodes and be like, here at the end, be like, I've only had this amount of followers. And like each time there's like a steady little growth.
Mm-hmm.
And is a lot of the growth me meeting people in the wild, being like, hey, you have YouTube?
Right.
Pull out your app, subscribe, But sometimes that's how you have to do it. And that works.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
again, like expectations are heavy and they get in the way.
Well, actually, no, not to start any competition or anything, but Hyen's episode was my most watched episode, and I had lost the video for it. So like So to be honest, like the fact that it was so huge to me. It was like one of those things where I think it was like 6 episodes that I didn't have video, and I put stock videography on just because I was like, these are such great episodes. I'm not willing to lose them.
Mhm.
But back to the whole coffee thing. So when I flew to New York, I saw the owner was there. And my first instinct was to be too shy. I don't want to bother him. But I'm like, I didn't fly halfway across the country to get shy now. So I went
Mhm.
over and I introduced myself. I got his number, and it was so great. Like, it's always scarier in your head. And even like working as a barista, I was only able to do it 2 days a week in the beginning
Mhm.
because standing for 8 hours, I had never worked in the food service industry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know anything.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Nope.
When I tell
No,
you I was humbled,
I made and delivered pizzas in high school and
you know
a little
how
bit.
hard it is to get a job in the food service industry when you're 28 and have no experience?
No.
It's really hard,
Okay.
surprisingly. In the back of my head, I was always like, well, they're all else fails. I could always like,
Yeah, yeah.
flip burgers at
I can
McDonald's.
always go to McDonald's.
Yeah, nope. Surprisingly really hard.
Hmm.
I know. But it's all good. Like, I feel like I landed exactly where I was supposed to. The coffee shop where I worked had a phenomenal manager who was actually in my previous episode she was on. And then after 4 months of working there, I almost switched to a different coffee shop because I'm like, I wanted a different
Mhm.
experience. But then she left, and then I got promoted. And then I became like the shift leader. I opened the shop. I do the POS system now. I've like trained in new baristas. These are
So you're
all
getting paid to learn all the things that you need for your business,
Mhm.
which is brilliant.
Right.
Like I think it's one of the big things that so another thing that I work with people on again in the life coaching space would be like big life changes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's relationship stuff, sometimes it's career stuff, sometimes it's like I'm unhappy but I don't know what to do about it.
Mhm.
And so like one of the things that I've always like known, like let's just say I knew that I wanted to go do something that was going to require a lot of education on my part. Like I want to make this change and I'm way, behind.
Yeah.
That's not a real there's no such thing as being behind or ahead, but like I'm behind.
It's
I
daunting.
would go get a job with either I would definitely pick up just so I could make money, Uber, what is it? Instacart, whatever one
Mhm.
of those. And I would spend all my time listening to books and podcasts about the topic I want to get in, about the field I want to get into,
Yeah.
and I would get paid to learn all that stuff.
Yeah, that's so smart.
And so like that's not any different than what you're doing right there.
Right. But it was also a huge shift because meanwhile, I was making a pretty nice salary, and
Hmm.
now I'm making like
Not that.
not that. But having that faith and that certainty beyond logic that if I'm willing to live how most wouldn't, then one day I could live how perhaps most won't.
Correct.
This is my goal. And also, it's like I even got challenged recently because um, my cousin recommended a job for me doing graphic design where I can work remote and make 80 to 100K a year, if not more, which is that's a nice
That's
salary.
enough. That's enough to just draw pictures.
But at the same time, I'm like I did that life, and that's way more money than I ever made here in like St. Louis, Missouri. But I'm like, I want this. And
Hmm.
I'm in a place in my life where I want more than money. I mean, obviously we all want money to a certain extent, but purpose is really more important
I
to
want a
me.
tool. Like
Yeah.
to me, money's a tool that I want, and
Yeah.
I would,
And financial
I
freedom.
could use more tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. No, that makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
then you'll also always have that fallback where you get far enough down the road with what you're doing now with the barista thing and working in
Hmm.
this shop and managing this shop. And all right, now your company is ready to make a jump, but you need a little extra money.
Hmm.
You people are not there aren't fewer people looking for graphic design work.
Right.
You can always put up some work and go get you a few freelance jobs like, oh, that's going to help me get, because if you order this much, costs this much. But if you order this much, you grab a couple jobs that'll get you, like, again, you have that in your back pocket. And
Exactly.
just the way that you were like, oh, I can always go flip burgers at McDonald's, you can always go back to
And
that.
that's the way I saw it too, where
Like
I'm like, this is a skill set
turning it
that's
down doesn't turn it away.
no. Yeah. 100%. Um, yeah, it's just so wild. It's so wild, but it's scary, but it's worth it. And I'm questioning my life's choices every single day.
Actually.
But, I feel called to it. And Zig Ziglar said that if there's a product or a business that you have a desire for and you're called to do and it's not in existence currently, then it's your moral obligation to make it a reality. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about the representation. So being maybe in the world of people with disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
the phrase representation matters gets thrown around like water. Like, oh, representation matters, representation matters. It's like, what are you? I just got really early on. I was like, well, what are you doing about that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, representation matters. I was like, well, what are you doing about that? Well, what they're doing about that is using it as an excuse to not go try to do things, keeping themselves safe. It's very that's ego.
Right.
Ego is keeping them from doing something that's scary. And to me, representation matters is a call to action. If you're going to sit there and see something you want and you don't see that happening, moral obligation, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to go be that representation so that no one else has to feel like that about that thing. That's what I'm doing with kickboxing.
Yeah.
Like my next fight will be here in St.
Oh,
Louis.
cool.
Like it will be in the state of Missouri,
If
which
it's not on Saturday, I'm totally down.
all right. It depends on the promotion,
Yeah, fair.
but it's all based on an amputee's never fought in Missouri, so there's no rules in place to allow it.
Oh, okay.
There's no rules in any state that allows it.
Okay.
Indiana, I was allowed to do that because they actually don't license kickboxing. Therefore, it's to the promoter. It's on their responsibility.
It's almost like an insurance, if you will, them choosing to allow the fight or not.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so my goal with it is I will be submitting a rule proposal this week to the athletic commission in Missouri, in the state of Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
with the goal that it becomes a template and used across the country. And I'll be the last amputee that ever has to ask the question, am I even allowed to participate?
Wow.
Because there's no run for me to make. There's unlikely some big opportunity. I'm there for life experience and personal development.
And paving the way for others.
And I'll plant a tree that I won't sit in the shade in
Yes.
all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that has been a theme that the more I'm okay with that, the cooler the things I get to do are.
Yeah.
That's how Ecuador happened in a
I'm
sense.
so glad you brought that up because
I
I'm
know,
like,
I
that
know.
was the whole point of like why
Oh,
we sat down
this isn't
here.
my first rodeo. This isn't my first
No,
rodeo.
so really that was like, you don't know this about me, but like when I traveled 2 years ago to Italy, I got bit by the travel bug.
Hmm.
And then I had this plan that every birthday I was going to go somewhere new in the world. So this way it wasn't like, oh no, I'm getting older. It's like, where am I going next?
Yep.
And I get this great experience every
Get to.
year. I just ran out of money. Um, so
Well,
that
and so I
is a
love how you say
factor.
that, like as you're talking about how the cut you just took on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole bunch.
Because what's worth it is worth it.
Yeah, yeah, and it will happen. And I actually, so anyways, one of my next thing that I really wanted to do because I'm reading all these travel books, and like you, once I read it, I want to experience it. It's not enough
Hmm.
to just be a consumer for me. I really have this goal to climb Mount Kilimanjaro,
Okay.
which is over 19,000 feet. It's one of the highest summits.
Hmm.
And it's like there's seven climate zones, and you climb through five of them. And like a lot of the different experiences, people say like it changes you. And like I'm not a big nature girl. I'm not.
You're gonna need to work on that.
I
If we're
know.
gonna hit this goal, you're gonna need to work on that, buddy.
I know. Like I'm not a big nature girl. I'm not a hiker. That's not my thing. But for some reason, like there's something calling me about this mountain. And like I was been reading so many like vlogs and watching so many different documentaries about people who've hiked it, and it's really not a hard hike, it's more of a trek. Actually, most people have said the most challenging thing is how slow you're going because it's just one step at a time.
Yep.
It's more of the altitude that you're having to get used to, but you're the first person I know in person who's climbed a mountain. And so I was like, oh, it's not Kilimanjaro,
Okay.
but I want to hear everything. Like, first, like, how did you even?
How did this come to be?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit of actually a lot of it was through social media.
Okay.
I went on this trip when I showed up. I had only met one of the group, and the group was like 35 people.
Mm-hmm.
I had met one of them in person ever.
Oh wow.
I had known about at least half of them for 2+ years through Instagram and conversations and just following and like, fuck yeah, dude. Um, so there's this nonprofit called ROMP. range of motion project.
Oh, cool.
And ROMP's mission is to provide access to quality prosthetic care. And the way they've gone about this, especially, is they have built two clinics in Central and South America, Guatemala, and Quito, Ecuador. And so these are areas that do not have access, really, like low to no access. And the stuff that they do have access to barely might even be borderline not usable.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have built two clinics, and they are able to provide these prosthetics for amputees, $400 to $500 out of pocket with continuing care.
That's really cheap.
My leg, if you were to go buy all this cash, get it done and get it made, 10K.
And it has to be like custom fit and everything, right?
There is no other option. There is no other choice.
Right.
Every socket has to be done custom.
500. That's insane. That's so cheap.
Mine is 10K. Again,
Yeah.
costs 10 grand easy. If you're an above knee amputee, those things get up into six figures.
So now we're just talking about regular prosthetics. Are they
Oh,
offering regular prosthetics or like the one? Aren't there like special ones for if you're trying to do certain like
there are
physical?
specialty feet.
Right.
So it's the foot that gets attached. So
Okay.
and there's systems around that, and I actually have already helped them create some more avenues
Cool.
to have better access to some of those specialty
Yeah.
because there's a lot more that's going to come out of this climb. That's kind of what happened this week.
That's really cool.
And so range of motion project, that's their mission. And so one of the big things they do, this is based out of Colorado, and the handful of people that are like that run it they're all mountaineers and outdoor enthusiasts. You know, it's very much what you would expect out of somebody that lives the Colorado lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so once a year, they bring a team out. And this was the first year they brought enough for two teams to climb two mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is it's a demonstration. This is what's possible. This is what's on the table with quality prosthetic care. As an amputee, I was able to summit Mount Cotopaxi, which is the third largest active volcano in the world. I got to look into an active volcano, which
That's
is
wild.
10-year-old me is screaming inside.
Screaming
Don't
scared.
fall in. It's not like that, unfortunately. It wasn't bubbling red.
Well, fortunately, it wasn't bubbling
Well,
red.
we wouldn't have climbed if it was.
Right.
Like that mountain had actually erupted in the last year.
Yeah, it's I was looking it up.
Yeah.
It's pretty active. It's crazy.
Yes. It's a very real climb.
Isn't there like a glacier
Yeah,
on top as well?
So most of about 2/3 of my time was spent on the glacier,
Very cool.
and so they put the team together, and it was an application process, and
Mm-hmm.
so I had 5 or so friends. One of the ones that I had met, and then the other ones were internet friends that were, you got to apply. Please apply to be on this team. Please apply to be on this team. And then the organization themselves reached out. It's like, hey, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of past climbers that really want to see you on this. They sent me the link to make sure I apply. I apply. I get selected to be on the team. And so that's really what set the wheels in motion. There were some people that thought that I should be there. I'm fortunate enough to have these people in my life, even if they weren't real at the time,
Yeah.
and to say yes. And so that's what got this all set in motion. That was early this year. And so we go through the process with, getting prepared. I have a $10,000 fundraising goal. There's a trip fee, flights. And so I'm navigating all of this green.
And also the vaccines.
There were none.
You didn't have Okay, so I think that's also part of it with Africa. There's a lot of vaccines
With
there
Africa,
too.
yes, there are. I got a buddy that spends some time, I want to say Matt, what is it? Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
I want to say he's done some stuff with an organization called Fight for the Forgotten.
Oh, cool.
But so I've never left the country. I've never been at elevation. We're here in St. Louis, right about 0 feet.
There's like, where are you gonna practice?
Yeah,
That's the problem.
exactly. There's not a bunch of big hills. Like I like to hike, but like not like serious
It's
outdoor.
hard because there's no really elevation practice as well. You
Correct.
can put like a backpack full of weights and do the Stairmaster, but like that's not
There's another component.
right.
There's another component that's very hard to train for,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the elevation. And so never left the country, never been at elevation, nothing even close to mountain climbing in my past. I don't know the gear.
Yep.
I'm just gonna say yes. I'm gonna trust that I have the tools, and I know that my number one skill in life is figuring it out.
Yeah.
I am an excellent learner. I'm an active learner, and I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. Let's lean in and we'll walk as far as we can and just make the deal that you don't solve problems before you have them.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so from there, it's all just prep and, work on my fundraising, yada, yada, yada. I'm almost there at this point. I feel like I've got like $2,400 to go. And we're going to get that done. And so we get into the country. It was a Thursday. Yeah, I think I got in like late Thursday night.
Yeah.
Um, Actually really fortunate. Same time zone. It was Central Time. So that was really convenient.
Yeah.
Dealing with everything else, didn't have to deal with the time change. But even, yeah, that first night trying to go to sleep, between like the excitement and the altitude, couldn't fall asleep. Like
Oh wow.
I just feel like I'm like, man, I just feel like I don't have enough air. So anytime
Mm-hmm.
you try to like go to sleep, you feel like you don't have enough air, a little bit,
It's wild.
but you adapt and you adjust. And so the first couple days in country are getting everybody in, and then from there, so yeah, so the first few days is just straight up getting like acclimated, getting to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
introductions, and they provided a lot of the gear, so getting our gear issued to
Oh,
us,
they provided a lot of the
a lot
gear.
of it, yeah. So
That's really helpful.
again, like some of the people that are like that run it used to be professional athletes, and they've got partnerships and they got friendships with some of these companies, and
Yeah.
so like I got this incredibly nice mountain hardware puffy coat that's like hundreds
Yeah.
of dollars,
No, literally, those are so
and
expensive,
it's
but they're so important.
yes, and like little, so I got a couple, a few like real like whoo,
Can I
nice.
pause and talk about the equipment for a second?
Yeah,
Because,
let's go.
like, I've got some real questions.
Mm.
So, first of all, walking sticks, how important are those?
um Big time for me, especially missing a foot.
Right.
It was, yeah, no, I use my trekking poles the entire climb.
Also, like, how expensive do those really have to be? Because, like, I
So
was
I don't really know.
researching. Oh, that was provided to you.
Yeah, so it was provided, and I was given nice ones,
Okay.
but I think nice ones are about $100.
Right.
Uh, you know,
Because I saw ones on Amazon that were like 20 bucks. And I was just wondering, I'm like, this was my big thing when I was like getting all my, I was so serious. I was signed up. I was
Mhm.
like paid for it. Like the trip itself, I had been paying for like up to 10 months. So it was paid off.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
The trip was paid off. I didn't have my flight there yet. And I didn't have the vaccines, but I had a group. I had the trip paid off. Um, and I the one expensive thing I invested in was boots, and I got pink ones, which I was really excited about,
Naturally.
naturally. And I did some research. I saw with the walking sticks that they had ones that were just I saw people said you don't really have to get expensive ones, just being a first time climber, I didn't know. And I'm like, if I'm all the way over in Africa, the last thing I want is for
Is
me to have like really shitty walking sticks and be like, I should have invested a little more.
That's why ideally
Yeah.
you test out gear here.
Like on a smaller mountain in Colorado or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, like you test out gear
Okay.
there, or you find a friend that says, "All right, what do I actually need?"
Right.
And so, yeah, like the trekking poles were provided,
That's so great. That makes such
helmet
a big difference.
helmet was
Was there
provided.
a light?
I brought my own headlamp.
You brought your own headlamp?
Well, yeah, because we stepped out at 11 p.m.
Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy. You start really early in the
Hmm.
morning sometimes too. So, no, when I tell you that I've done my research,
Yeah,
like I am like 90% there in my brain. It just hasn't like happened yet. My other question was, did you get the water bottles that are like the bags in the backpack that you drink? You know what
I
I'm
did
talking about?
not use a bladder.
Okay.
That seems to be a varied opinion,
It's like a
because
trendy thing.
it's more that they can freeze,
Mm,
like the water in the line.
right. I've heard you're supposed to keep your water bottles upside down because it freezes on top. So this way you can still get access your water if it gets too
Gotcha.
cold.
I didn't have that. I brought two up. I should have brought three.
Okay.
I brought one in an Nalgene and one in a insulated.
Now, I was it correct that it's also over 19,000 feet?
Yes, yeah, it was 19,000,
So
19,347.
I think I don't know if it's down exactly to the number, but it sounds really similar to Mount Kilimanjaro. How many climate zones did you?
Never got discussed,
Okay.
so I'm not entirely certain.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so yeah, so we're in. So like I said, so we're in country now. We've gotten gear. We've done some of. I was really lucky. I got in on Thursday, which meant on Friday I got to go to the clinic, the
Mm,
prosthetic clinic, and meet some of the patients and see a little bit that was going on. And that was awesome. Like that was an equal highlight to the summit to me.
Yeah.
That's what's led to what's going to bring me back to Ecuador and work in those clinics and volunteer in the clinic, doing what I do best, which is the teaching side.
So cool.
And so yeah, so we're there for a few days. We do a little training hike that was going to get up to 14,000. So like I said, so Quito, which is like that big city in Ecuador we were in, was 9,000. So we went, then we drove out from the hotel on a training hike that got up to almost 14,000, and these, bunch of mountaineers, oh, what's the highest you ever been? What's your highest? I was like, this step right here. Now, oh, nope, now it's this step right
Oh my
here.
gosh.
So
So you had done no elevation
I
training.
had done that. I didn't have access to it.
So what kind of training were you doing just for your regular
I was
workouts
staying,
or
I made sure that I was strong. I made sure that my engine was good, like cardiovascularly, I was sound. The
100%? That's what
sauna.
everyone
The the
says.
the,
The
the best
sauna.
so once the sauna gets up over 185, not an infrared, but an actual heat sauna, like a dry heat sauna,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I was told that the infrared is the only one that doesn't actually give you this effect. But you get a sauna up over 185 and you can begin to mimic the challenge of altitude.
Interesting.
Um,
That's actually very true.
and so I'm already big on the sauna. I do the fire and ice stuff. My
Yep.
St. Louis breath and exposure
That was
is
another thing this year you got really big on, I
he.
noticed. Yeah.
I've been doing that one for like a long time.
Maybe I just was only following you this
It's
past
as I
year.
say, but
Yeah.
it is a big tool to me.
Yeah.
And so St. Louis breath and exposure is run by a good friend of mine, Josh Hildebrand. And if you've never done that, we should do that.
Okay.
That's a really fun get to know you.
That's really
Get to
cool.
know you
In the
exercise.
cold and the hot, and then like
Yes, it's
asking to shoot a podcast episode live, like during that.
Josh would love it. He jokes that the sauna's truth serum because after about 10 minutes and
Oh my
200-degree
God.
heat, people start
Saying all of their deepest, darkest secrets.
the walls come down real fast. The walls come down really quick.
Oh, I would love that. That would sound so fun.
And so yeah, actually yes, as I say it out loud, yes, this is your jam. You should
Yeah.
you're robbing yourself by not doing it,
Okay.
especially when it's so accessible and so close.
Yeah. I would
Um,
love the introduction and
yeah, we get
all
it.
after camera.
We
Yeah.
get it done.
Okay.
And so we've got this training hike, and the big thing that was really like never in a million years realized is how different weather conditions are in terms of severity, how
Mm,
quick onset they can be when you're just that much closer to the source. I'm used to sea level.
right.
We're 14,000 feet closer to the origin of that raindrop, to that lightning, to that this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so we get close to the summit of Mount Pasachoa, again, 14-ish thousand feet, and they start getting some like, I think we're getting some weather. We're just going to go ahead and call it here. We've got what we need out of this. And so we're on our way down, and we're just like we're cruising. Everyone's having a good time. We had a couple of people get a little bit of altitude sickness, and that was it. And so we're going, and but we're not really that close to done coming down, and it just opens up. It goes from like we're good, it is pouring rain. And about 2 seconds later, it is hammering us with hail to the point that it's hitting the ground, coming back up and hitting me in
Oh
the
my
face.
God.
Like I felt real Forrest Gump. Like some rain even felt like it came up from the ground, like that sort of deal. Like
I
that
love Forrest Gump.
that bit. Like I had, it was like heavy, heavy hail. I'll show you the
Yeah.
video, but at that same time, we're all just like we're
It's
in.
just an
It's
epic
it was such a fuck
experience.
yeah. Like I get in the
Yeah.
bus, I was like, I know you guys are cold, but don't do anything but smile right now, because don't think for a fucking second that this isn't the story you're gonna rush to tell when you go back home.
Literally. Yeah,
It
yeah.
was so much fun.
That's so cool.
It was like just a cool experience.
Yeah.
And so so this happens on our training hike, and good exposure to how fast things can go downhill
Mm-hmm.
as well, though. It's also it was, but again, it's the story. I'm like, this was so much fun. I'm sitting there with literally Albert Lynn from
Yeah.
Discovery Channel, David Kilgore, who's a professional runner, Alyssa Clark, professional runner, and we're just like walking, and all of a sudden, now I'm with these three guys, these three just killers. And everybody goes into like hell yeah mode. Albert Lynn's a TV guy, so he's going all TV, getting his videos.
It's so
He's like,
funny.
no, he's like, I want to have this for later. And it's like, yes,
Yeah.
the energy. It's
It's just a
somehow
great team.
hail lifted the energy of the
Even
group,
more. Yeah.
and it just raised the energy, and it was so cool. And I knew, I'm like, man, I'm with the right people right now.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the right place right time.
Yeah. So how
And
many days was this altogether?
so I think I was there for like 10 and a half days,
10 and a half days?
10 and a half or 11. So
That makes sense. The longer I've heard, like, you don't want to do this fast. Like, some people do it in 5 or 7 days, but it's like you really want to stretch
yeah,
it.
they know what they're doing. Like this was the 10th. This is their 10th climb,
Yeah.
10th year doing the climb. And so we have that experience, we have our fuck yeah, we go to a really nice dinner that night. And the next day the team split up. So now there was a team that climbed Mount Cayambe and there was a team that was on Cotopaxi. And so our team split up at that point and we went to some haciendas. I want to say 11 or 12,000 feet an hour. So we're going to spend a night there and, again, help with the acclimation. Maybe the most beautiful place thing building. It was, it was a dream. Like
Mm.
it was like, is this real
Mm-hmm.
moment? And, um, like I'm sitting like, man, this is a writer's dream. It's secluded. You're out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's beautiful and clear. And like the mountain we're getting ready to climb is poking in and out of the clouds all day in where we'd eat our food.
Yeah.
And so we spend about a day there between we get there in the like late morning, early afternoon, have lunch. We spend the night there, but we head to the refuge the next morning. So the refuge is like this little lodge that's on the mountain. And this lodge is at 14,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go up there and it is like they don't have power, they have generators. So the generators are only on for certain parts of the day. We're still getting made they're making incredible food though.
Right.
This is the wildest thing. It's all three-course meal. It's all soup, meal, dessert. Um, and so we're in this like again, now it feels like we're in a movie. Like all the way we're in this like movie scene. Everyone's in the lodge with their hot cup of whatever. We're inside with our coats and beanies on, just nothing to do but play cards and shoot the shit.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, it's like we get off the bus and it was an hour uphill walk just to get to the refuge. So we got all our gear. We carry that for an hour. Then we get there and then we get to eat. And they're like, all right, now we're gonna do a little training hike. I got I got told don't ever trust an Ecuadorian mountain guide unless they say we're gonna take a break in 10 minutes. It's the only thing they're ever honest about. We got told we were just gonna take a quick, like we're gonna go like another 100 meters up, spend a little time up there to help with the acclimation. So none of us bring water. And at elevation, hydration is a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
Like you are drying out.
Mm-hmm.
It's electrolytes all day. 90 minutes. We were up there for 90 minutes. Like up. And we were hoofing it. Because you're talking about how slow you walk. We were
Yeah.
walking probably 3 times faster than we were actually going to climb.
Mm.
And so that was the only time I got it. That one messed me up a little bit. If I'd have brought water, I think I would have been okay, but I didn't because
Because he told
I,
you.
I expected the 10 to 20 minutes. And so come back down. I had some pretty like that night. I had a hard time eating dinner. My stomach. I didn't get sick. I didn't. I didn't get sick or anything like that. Like I was talking. We had a couple guys. We had a couple people get altitude sickness at Paso Choa, and of course they were all like. Somehow I ended up like playing this role where I was like the quarterback of like 3 people throwing up, and like I'm taking barf bags, handing them out, like
Oh, wow.
all night. This was my whole drive.
Yikes.
But again, like it was fun. It was bonding. I'm not
I
gonna
feel like they're
lie
like
for a
your
second.
brothers, like at this point.
At this point, yeah, it was it was Joey, Kyle, and Leslie all just getting sick, and just like now I'm just sitting there, doing like little things like that, and but I also learned a lot there because like Kyle, one of the guys that really encouraged me to apply. Dude's been climbing forever. Like he's been doing stuff like this, lives out in New Mexico, he does elevation. But it also, again, that was a great lesson for me. I think the whole team, I hope they all took it to understand that like you aren't guaranteed another step at any point.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how experienced you are, it doesn't matter how many times you've done it or how strong you are in the gym. And that was it was a really good thing for me. Like see that Kyle, one of the experienced guys in the group, was getting hit with something that he's handled plenty of times.
It's humbling.
Yes. It's also not a commentary on your abilities or who
Yeah.
you are as a person either.
Yeah.
You know, Kyle is very likely to find himself on the USA Paralympic triathlon team in this next cycle. And so it's, so we're doing all that. And, so it's like, so also So I grew up. So now we're at the lodge at that same elevation. I'm like, okay, this can happen, and it may time out. And I knew that, so now I'm getting like sick, and I'm not getting sick, but my head's killing me. Like my head was
Right.
killing me. Didn't sleep well. I didn't sleep well the entire time in country. Outside of like the nap that I took after the
That's
mountain
what I was
climb.
thinking.
Yeah, I slept very poorly.
Did you
And
sleep like intense on the mountain as you were climbing up?
no, it wasn't. It's not that big of a climb because again, we're already at 14,000 feet. We're going to 19.
Oh, I see. So you're not
So
going
so so
from
so we're
you're
that
not going from 0 to 19. You're
correct.
already
We
okay,
started at
okay,
14,
okay.
yeah. And so at this point, yeah. So that was the only time I had any real hiccup.
That all is making sense to me now why that first night was hard elevation wise. Okay, okay, because
Yeah.
you were
So
already flying into an elevated state.
yes, and yeah. So like I said, and there was there's just so much like there were so many like cool things. As you're driving, it's like things that we don't think are real. Like, oh, they're just for the movies. No, I'm watching. I'm like, we're driving up to this refuge, and or driving up to this, that, or the other, and these are these houses built into the mountainside. This is where people live.
So cool.
It's awesome. It's just and so that was really like I got lucky. So I knew the whole time. I was like, at any point, I don't. My story of climbing the mountain could be done.
Right.
And, so there was no expectation that I was getting to the top, even though I've done a bunch of things, and it wasn't a pessimistic view. It was just being honest. Like, okay, I've never done elevation. I've never climbed a mountain. How many people, like, one of the big things I've learned, I talked about language, is that the people that knew what they're talking about, they never said we're going to climb a mountain. That never once came out of any of their mouths.
Okay.
We are going to attempt to summit
Okay.
because you could be perfectly prepared and the weather could say no.
Got it.
Which is what happened on the other mountain on Cayambe. They never had an opportunity to really truly attempt to summit.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good thing you were on this one.
yeah, well, no, they had a way better time than me because they went out. They started a lot later, but they just went to 17,000 where we're done, and they had a snowball fight.
Oh, okay.
They had a blast. Those guys had a lot of fun.
That is so
I
fun
was like,
though.
man, we had two very different brands of fun. I'm really glad that they both exist.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, so I had like these like moments after that climb. I was like, okay. I might not get to tell the story I wanted to tell. That's fine.
Ooh, that's a powerful
Like
realization.
like yeah, exactly. I mean, it was just like going into the fight earlier in the year. I can lose.
Mm-hmm.
I can be winning the whole time and lose. Happens all the time.
And yet you're in an experience that even just the experience alone, not many people will ever have the
Correct.
opportunity to do.
Exactly. I was like, we had some, there's one or two people there with a little confidence. I was like, do you understand how few people would even say yes, much less act on that?
Right.
I was like, quit pretending like you're not ahead of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing fucking great.
Right.
And so, yeah, so when I had my altitude issues, that was right about 24 hours before, 28 to 24 hours before we were supposed to step out. Woke up, head still was throbbing, but it got better. I obviously I got better. Probably wouldn't be telling the story. I probably wouldn't be here if it didn't.
Yeah.
So I did not have a headache the whole day, but like that day though, the whole point was eat and rest, eat and rest, eat and rest. So I was
Mm-hmm.
either probably laying down trying to sleep or eating all day. You spend a little bit of time out there, trying to burn a little energy, or just so you can kind of rest, rest, rest. But yeah, so that morning, I think we had breakfast around 7. We pretty well went back to bed, got up for lunch, went back to bed, had an early dinner at 5. We got all the last bits of information. We learned who our rope teams were going to be because we were paired up with it was a guide and 2 climbers. And so we formed a rope team. So we were connected by ropes once we got on the glacier. And they're like, all right, you need to be ready to go at 11 p.m. That's when we're leaving. We're leaving at 11 p.m. Um, really turned into like 11:15. Go figure.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, dark of night. Step out one step at a time.
And it was freezing.
It
And it
was
was
it was
dark.
cold enough.
Yeah.
I never got cold. Like I never had an issue with being cold. In fact, I started without my puffy coat on until we got to the glacier.
Okay.
And so, man, it's almost like it's challenge. So like this was an 8 hour. It took me 8 hours to summit.
Mm-hmm.
We covered 3 miles.
Oh wow, so you're going really slow.
Yes. For reference, my dog and I on a walk today, we walked one of the miles we walked. My watch tells me we walked in 16:30. I can walk almost 4 miles in that same in an hour. Took 8 to get 3 because you're having to be so careful.
Right.
Like you're not even getting a stride. And the second you do, your heart rate just goes.
It's so
And
crazy.
every time I found myself getting ahead of my pace, my heart rate and then you get the elevation, the thin air, and so everything's just getting amplified. But your step is here, here,
But what a good life lesson, right?
here, here, here. Like, and it's that that's your cadence. Your cadence is so slow,
Right.
and basically just straight up again. That's a ton of climbing for only 3 miles in 8 hours. So we get started, and the energy's high, the excitement's there, but I get my oh no, I don't know if I have a problem or not problem
Mm,
by 17,000 feet.
okay.
So we're really not really that close. And I'm sitting there like, I've got this guy on my rope team and I don't want to mess with his experience, so some of that is starting to creep in and I'm having to have these
Ooh,
conversations. And I was like, well, if I can sort it out like this, I must not be, I just can't point. Like, if I can think through it like this, I'm not in that bad a shape. If you start to get lightheaded, just say something, and so that's all I'm thinking is like, don't solve problems you don't have. Don't be afraid to ask for help, but also don't assume that something bad is about to happen.
right.
You work through these things. Like one of the things that I learned when I started running and started getting into distance running is you almost always start off not feeling that great. That's a big secret people don't understand about running and why they stop.
Yeah.
First mile is almost always the worst mile. This was definitely the case on this climb. Is like because that's where I'm getting all the acclimation and my body, and at a certain point my body's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And it's also dark out. I can see what's in my headlamp. We stop every 45 minutes or so, and you look down and you can see Quito, which is a 2 hour drive away at this point because you're so high up. You can see way in the distance. You can see the lights of Quito, and that was cool.
Right.
But the reality is, you actually don't see any of the mountain on the way up. Sun didn't come up until about 95% of the way there,
So interesting.
and so you're just walking
What's the thought process behind like starting so,
when we do
yeah,
time to come back down. Likelihood of weather.
okay.
Because again, you're so much closer, like things can get bad fast. And so we got to the glacier, so I sort myself out there. I sort myself out through through those. Am I getting lightheaded or is this just new?
Yeah.
And so I sorted that out and I just kept walking. I was like, I'm going to problem solve on the move. That's good enough. I'm going to problem solve on the move
Mm-hmm.
and sort it out. All those physical and emotional feelings, bye bye. They're gone. We're moving. We're in the zone.
Okay.
And so we get to the glacier. We put on they're called crampons.
You
And
have to put the special things on the,
the
yes.
spikes, yes.
Yes.
I know you knew exactly. I knew you were going to get excited. Yes.
Yeah, because
So when you
literally
get,
everything you're saying, I feel like it's very much like similar to Mount Kilimanjaro. So like I do have an idea
yeah.
of what you're talking about.
And so like, yeah. So for those that are listening, you're like, isn't that a female hygiene product?
Yeah.
It is not. It is spikes that you attach to your boots, your mountaineering boots, so that you can dig into a glacier.
Right.
And so so now your step changes. How you walk with crampons is different and it's more exhausting.
They've said a lot of these glaciers that are on top of these mountains may not be there in the next 50 years because of like global warming.
Hmm.
So this is an experience that like,
It's evaporating.
yeah,
Like literally. It's an expiring opportunity. And one of the guides talked about how he'd been climbing his whole life and he talked about the difference. He's like, there was a point where we would have had crampons on within the first hour.
wow,
And now
that's wild.
and he's like, now we're or like the lodge
It's a
was
significant change.
yes. Um, and so yeah, so like I said, so we get the crampons on, and then now you've got enough to think about that you don't have time to worry about other shit.
Right.
And so that's actually, I think, really good. I think that's nice. because you got your poles. Obviously, the terrain is becoming more difficult. And like I said, so every time that volcano erupts, the path is who knows what it's going to be after that. And we had a media guy that come climbing with us. He's from Ecuador. Said that he had summited that mountain 14 times and said that that was by far the most technically challenging route that he'd ever had to do for that mountain. That being said, ignorance is bliss. To me, all mountain climbing is Mount Cotopaxi in this year
Right.
is 2024 Mount Cotopaxi. To me, that's the only thing mountain climbing is. So I didn't know better.
That's
You know,
helpful in a
yes.
way.
Well, there's nothing to be. What do I was like? I don't have anything to be like. Oh, this is way harder than. No,
Right.
everything has been way harder than. And
Right.
so you've got that. So now you've got this taken care of in terms of like in like you've got. I'm in the groove. Like I feel like I'm in the groove. Jason, guy on my rope team, killed it all the way up as well. And the guide is great. There are guides that work with our teams, like because they've learned to work with amputees, and they say it's one of their favorite climbs all year
Oh, cool.
because it's just a different brand of human being that's doing
Yeah, it's
this.
probably so much more inspiring
They're,
too.
well, they're just like, you guys don't complain about dumb shit.
Right.
Like you
You're
guys
like,
don't
I'm just happy to be
you
here.
don't complain about dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And so at this point, like I said, it's all the way chop wood, carry water, like every little step. And you don't have, and by the time I was done, I felt like it was very meditative. It was almost in a lot of ways like an 8-hour meditation because you're just so there.
Yeah.
There's no other choice. Like I'm barely even seeing my guide.
You just have to take one step at a time.
You're just
It's
one,
so
you're
cool.
just one step, like, because you have to make sure you put that in the right place.
Right.
Like I had a couple times where I put my pole down and boom, broke through ice. Well, glad I didn't put my foot there,
Right.
sort of thing.
It's really scary.
And so there's a lot of learning, so you just have to be a learner, and
Your senses must have been so
you're just there.
on.
Like you're so there.
Because I mean, that to me feels very like life and death in a sense. So you're like, there really isn't room for you to space out.
For me, there wasn't even room to think about it like that. I also trusted in my team.
Right.
Like I never at any point thought like, oh man, if I step wrong, I'm gonna die.
Right.
No, these guys have to know what to do when someone falls. Like,
Yeah.
let's just hope I don't have to learn that today.
Right.
Let's just do that.
I'm really glad you got the opportunity to summit it, because I know you said the other team has still had a lot of fun and whatever, but
Uh,
what an experience.
yeah, like that's more my brand of fun.
Yeah.
Like,
How long were you actually at the summit for?
man, it was probably less than 5 minutes.
That's what I've heard with Mount Kilimanjaro as well. It's pretty dangerous to stay up there for too
Yeah,
long.
between the elevation and like at
And
that point, like
it's
the
so
sulfur
cold.
it was like 20.
20
Yeah, it
degrees?
was like 20
So
degrees plus elevation.
I think Mount Kilimanjaro gets to be like in the negatives. Like
Yeah, so where we
that's
went, it
why.
wasn't as wild. Like for us,
Yeah.
actually, the biggest issue is how much sulfur was in the air
Okay. From the
from the
volcano.
last time the volcano erupted.
Interesting.
And so, like, yeah, you smelled it.
That's so cool.
Like you smelled it, and like we get to this point where it was really fucking hard. Like there was times where I'm like, I never in a million years thought that I was going to get all the way to the point where I'm using an ice axe up to climb, and then using crampons to dig in to climb up and over stuff.
That's so
I
crazy.
never thought that was going to be like, oh, they're not bringing all these amputees up here for a climb like that. No,
They were.
they did.
They didn't give a shit that you guys had
Mountains,
amputees at all. They were just like,
and neither did I. But like, I just kind of was also like a source of I was like, they know what they're doing. They bring first timers up every
right.
year,
But that's
and
a really cool experience too,
I'm
because
glad I did. Like, I'm so grateful for that I had these little challenges and had to figure these things out because
mhm,
after that, I'm just another person that says woulda, shoulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
but also just that confidence to know. I mean, you're like, if I could do that, I could do anything.
I know how it's more undeniable proof that I can figure it out.
So great.
And that's all I need. Like
Yeah.
I've learned to live on that. It's one of the things I used to talk. I'll joke around the military about my military experience. Is that in training you learned how to make a sip of water into lightning bolts. Like we would be doing whatever training exercise, and we'd have 45 seconds to go get a drink and be back in formation. You don't slug water at that point because you're going to throw up if you do. So you get a
Right.
sip of water, and you have to convince yourself that sip of water is absolute gold. And it's lightning bolts for energy, baby. And so like you learn how to like live on these little things. And
Yeah.
so I'm it's more confident, it's more evidence that I can figure it out in the moment before it's too late.
I love
And
this.
I'll figure this out. And so yeah, so we get to this point. Next time I learn don't trust an Ecuadorian mountain guide, he's like, because we're at this point now, he's like, this is the last bit. He's like, right up there, that's your push. That's the push to the summit right there. Oh, you won't need this. Don't even worry about bringing that. So I didn't. Yeah, I wished I would have. Wished I would have. Um, so but we get to that last push and we get to the top, and it was cool because we summited with another group, like together.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't just Jason and I and my guide. It was Jason, myself, my guide, and then Dave. They're both named Dave, so that was a lot of fun. There was like 4 Daves on the team, to
Oh,
include
wow.
Dave Krupa, who runs ROMP. So Dave Bernhardt and Dave Kilgore, both killers in very different directions in life. So the 4 of us got to summit together, have a little snack, take a few pictures, and then I got to learn that coming down the mountain's way shittier. Coming back down, they said there was 2 things. One, when you don't know, and you're just so tired.
Right.
I'd already been going for 8 hours, and now I've got another 3 to 4.
Mm.
It's downhill. You've done the thing that you're trying to do. So there's that like emotional side of it, that little come down. But also as a baloney amputee, my big thing I don't have is that ankle movement. And when you go down a hill, you need a lot of ankle not dorsiflexion, you need plantar flexion. So where the toes get under and that's how you slow yourself down and use the crampons to control yourself.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
missing half of that. And I got torn up inside my socket. And that's what they said,
Mm.
they're like, on the way up kills the above knee amputees, the way down destroys the below knee amputees.
Mm.
And I got trashed. Like I said, I was just so tired. And this is, to be honest, this is without a doubt, for all the things that I've done, I have been so tired, so disgustingly tired at so many points in my life. This is the closest I've ever been to truly finding zero on the gas tank.
Wow.
This is but definitely it. But we get back, once you get back to the lodge, though, you get that little
Euphoria.
dopamine. Yeah, the
Yeah.
euphoria kicks in. Everybody's there waiting for me. There was no reason to expect that I was going to make it.
Right.
Not like like everybody knew that I did what I did in the gym. Like there was a fundraiser thing that I
You had
did.
no experience.
But I had no experience with the elevation. They all know. One of the reasons why we still train water with some of our special operations guy, even though they're never going to use it, is it's an equalizer. Some people are just great runners, and the run isn't going to bother them. Some people are just great at rucking; they can do pull-ups all day. You put people in the water, and it becomes an equalizer. Elevation is that, and they were just like the people that were experienced, like it is so gnarly that you finish that, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Reflect, like when I'm there, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm used to just finishing. I'm used to taking things as far as I can take them. So this was just another thing that I took it
That's
as,
what I mean. Where I was like, I'm really glad you got the opportunity
yeah,
to summit because, like,
I wouldn't have known. And now I know this about
yeah. And
myself.
I feel like a part of you would have wanted to keep going and do it back until you kind of got that summit experience, you
Oh,
know?
100%. No, like, I know that my drive to go do it again is to do it better.
Right.
I got to figure out my sleep. And
So
this time I'm going to figure out
that's
this.
what I wanted to talk to you about as well, because like when I was reading about this, people talk about how exhausting it is to go up, but then coming down is like everything you said. Emotionally, you're just exhausted and it's really rough, even if you're in the best physical shape to come
Yeah.
down. And they talk about how like this euphoria after the climb literally could be months to years after. Every bad, hard experience that you had just slowly starts to dissipate, and
And
all
I've already
you're
got
left
it. And I've already got that in my life.
right, and you're already, like, left with this, "Oh my god, it was so amazing, I need to go back," and usually, like, having that experience at least once turns people into climbers for life.
Travel bug, yes. Climbing hard, fit hard. I've always been like, man, I just need to be somebody that doesn't feel the need to challenge Mother Nature.
Yeah,
Mother
yeah,
Nature's undefeated.
literally, yeah.
And I keep getting closer and closer to being someone that just needs to challenge Mother Nature for some. But I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, you get back to the lodge and there's that euphoria and you got the group collective fuck yeah.
Yeah,
For especially,
you're
it
all
was
feeding off
it
each
was cool.
other.
I'm not used to being the guy that people are rallying around in a sense. Like I'm usually I found myself at this stage in life, I tend to be more in a leadership position. I'm the
Mhm.
guy doing that for other people.
Yeah. So to
And
be in that team group
yeah, and
setting.
so for everybody to be there for me was unique and special, and like that was its own experience, Um, for summiting the mountain, I got a passport. There's a special passport stamp I got to have.
That's so
And so me and
cool.
Alyssa Clark, Alyssa's a killer. She ran during COVID. She was born and ran 90. She's a professional runner already, but she ran 95 marathons in 95 days.
Oh my God.
And
I'm really tired just from hearing
right.
that.
And
Because
so
most people train months to do one marathon.
she's just really good at it.
Yeah.
And so her and I, we knew about that stamp. We're like, all right, we're doing it together. So I got back, we got our passports, and we went and we were allowed to stamp each other's passports. And yeah, and then it all sits in. Once that stamp, I was like, fuck yeah, now I have to go pack everything and go to the bus right now. Um, and you start to reflect and it was a very spiritual experience for me, there was that 8-hour meditative where it just like everything in my life got broken down at different times, while like because I said like you don't really have room for anything else,
Right.
so everything gets to just flow inside. The river gets to flow without you putting dams in to get in the way.
So, end all be all, would you say that this is an experience that you suggest for?
If you turn it down, you're a dummy. I
Okay.
hate to say it like that, but that has been the most common thing. If you ever get an opportunity, I promise you, whatever work you have to do to make it a reality will be so worth it.
Okay. Well, what we should do is we should have you come back a year from now because there's this. So, the group that I was going to be part of originally, I found this group. It was like an all girls group, like luxury traveling kind of thing, right? That's why it was so expensive. And so I was paying out of pocket for it, right? Didn't work out. I was trying to be more financially responsible, so I took a step back, got my money back from it, and didn't
Hmm.
end up doing it in the end. And it's been one of my biggest regrets that's kind of been eating at me too, like just thinking about it. Um, but I actually got an opportunity, which was really cool. One of my concerns is even though I'm on this religious journey, one thing that I've always been really careful to implement is keeping Shabbos. Like our Sabbath
Hmm.
begins Friday night through an hour after sundown on Saturday night. And so that was always a concern for me with climbing this mountain because it's usually a minimum of 7 to 10 days. And so there's going to be like a Shabbos somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And I would need to not be able to climb on that
That could work.
time.
That would be easy enough to work in. Because
Perhaps, but then you have a group, so you have to make sure that they're on the same page. But so, like a year after I decided not to do the climb, I don't know how I got connected with this. I don't remember if I signed up by accident because I was still like on the hunt on Instagram and forgot. But a Jewish organization reached out to me
that was immediately what came to mind for me. I was like,
that there's a
I bet there is, or would be easy enough to put together enough people
So there's a
who are
Jewish
honoring the same
organization,
Shabbos.
and apparently it's new. They've already done it twice though already. So I think they've done it at least twice, if not three times. So they're established enough at this point. It's an all women's group, and it's Jewish girls, all ranges of Judaism, like how much you practice or don't practice. But they go every summer, and it's all for this charity called Team Friendship. So I think this conversation is what I needed
There
to
we go.
like
Let's go on some hikes.
push me over the edge.
You talk about tying this into your religion.
Yeah.
Like I think that's super cool. Like while I don't practice a formal religion,
Yeah.
like again, like I said, there was a very spiritual component of that. Like I
I just want to see like God's world, like see the way
it's
the world
it's just
moves.
different. Like I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen some of the pictures from it.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Like it
Like those are
looks
magic. Like if you
breathtaking
don't believe if you can look at those two pictures in particular
and
and
not
not
believe
believe
in
in
a higher
magic,
power. Yeah.
you're
You're missing something.
higher than I've ever been.
Yeah.
Because like like there was like for me, as we got in the group and everyone's all sharing their story, and I started to realize that there was, I lost my little brother,
Hmm.
a little over 2 years ago, and he was the one that I had the really and like connected big brother little brother relationship with, and he was always in my corner. Like, and I have had periods in my life where no one else was in my corner.
Yeah.
And he was always all in on whatever I was doing. And, whenever he died, it was unexpected in an accident. And his fiance told me that he used to tell people that he had his older brother did superhero shit. even though he was an amputee.
Mm.
And we talk about language, and that's a big difference. There are people that, they'll just take one of my videos and be like, "What's your excuse? What's this?" And or a superhero because I'm an amputee, sort of stuff. But apparently
Mm.
that was his phrase, is superhero shit, even though.
Right.
That's way different. And and he still he tries to help people. He does this. And so, a very big thing in my life, I hadn't really been super connected to that in a little bit. And something that, that language mattered. Um, but I've always been very big on, like, I will never prove anyone wrong. I do not waste my time proving haters wrong.
I love
I
that.
will not honor your negative energy with my life decision,
Mm-hmm.
but I will prove Parker right. I'll be the person that I'll
The
be the version.
legacy.
I'll be the version of me that existed in his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I got there, it revealed itself to me. I was at dinner and somebody used the phrase superhero shit,
Oh, well, that's serendipitous.
and it caught
Literally.
me. And then he thought that he loved the Pit Vipers. Pit Viper was a sponsor of ours. I got a pair of Pit Viper glasses, the only pair I've ever owned.
Wow.
I was hanging out with one of their athletes.
And this was after his passing, so it's
Yes.
almost like he's there with
If
you,
I felt like he
supporting
was
you.
talking to me.
That's so cool.
And so I get up on that mountain and I'm now 19,347 feet closer to him than I'll ever get again.
Mm-hmm.
I will never get closer to touching Parker again than at the top of that mountain. I got to just have that, like, this is who you believed I was. This is exactly what I would be doing in your brain. I would be going and climbing an effing mountain after losing a leg and doing it in a way that's going to help other people.
Yeah.
And and if I don't go through the whole process, I never feel that. It wasn't about the summit. It was about everything else, and I've always heard that, nobody writes a book about climbing a mountain and spends more than a page or two talking about the summit.
It's true. It's the
The
training.
the book is this thick,
And it's all about the training.
and
It's
there's only
so
a couple
true.
pages that are dedicated to the summit. And I got to just have that moment with him, that you got to work really hard. You got to work really hard to have that moment. It's a lot of work to get back there. And I was able to, the universe let me up there, because there's no good reason I should have found that. I should have gone down to altitude sickness way before that ever happened.
Yeah.
But I knew I knew who I wanted to go see up there.
I feel very called to go to Mount Kilimanjaro. And like I just said, like it just maybe it's also a timing thing, but like especially when I saw your post as you were starting to post more and more, I was like, I need to have a real person to person conversation. And this group, like they celebrate Shabbos there. Like, how cool is that? Like, what else?
I personally would think that that would be very cool.
I feel like it'd be
As
the best
as somebody
Shabbos of
who's,
my life.
yeah, as somebody who has never experienced or observed,
Yeah.
I would be very honored to be in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just to breathe the air, which is all you're trying to do, is just breathe that thin air.
Right. And now, even more so, now that I have like Café, my coffee brand up there, I would love
Very
like,
good, by the way.
thank you. I would love at the summit to like have some sort of swag or gear
Oh yeah, I
because
know.
like
I had my stuff on.
the branding exposure, like
I had my chopwood carry water beanie on.
even if I brought some of my coffee with me and like had it on the mountain, like so cool. So
Oh
cool.
yeah, they make cups that are real good at keeping water hot,
Yeah.
and they seal really well. So that's a cup of coffee at the top of a mountain
I
is more doable than it's
literally
ever been at any time in the history of the universe.
I have the number of the girl. She's been reaching out to me every single year, asking me if I wanted to join, if I wanted to join. And I think
I'll
this
help you train.
conversation is what I needed. And I
Like
think it's gonna be
like I'd have fun with that.
it's in June or July is when they go
Okay,
of next year. So of
that's a ton
20,
of time,
yeah, this would be a good time to
and I'll
start.
be getting ready for an ultra marathon at that time.
Okay,
So I'm
let's
gonna
do
be
it.
doing. So we can do some long walks.
Okay,
That's easy.
I'm in. I'm literally gonna message her after this conversation because I believe in momentum too.
Yep.
You know, like when you get this idea, you need to take action.
Yeah, we can start training now.
Within 24 hours of having an inspirational idea, you need to take action. That's a big part of Kabbalah, by the way, too.
And yeah, yeah.
It's a big part of Kabbalah. There's so many things about Kabbalah that's been like changing my life too, where it's like, we can talk about this after the episode. It's probably been like almost 2 hours, the episode.
We're getting there.
But I just wanted to end with my tradition, which is the whole basis of this podcast, which is the Hebrew quote, which is "Ezefu chacham halamei mikol adam," which means one who is wise is one who learns from everyone. And this is such a fascinating. Selfishly, this is all about me and wanting to learn about your,
Yeah.
experiences.
Why does anyone
But
start a podcast? A good one.
totally,
That's literally how Joe Rogan.
yeah.
That's
I'm
what Joe
just
Rogan's
curious.
podcast is.
I'm like, honestly, like this podcast also is a platform to help me get over my social anxiety too, because like you could say to someone, it's much more, I don't know, for me, it's much more scary to say to someone, hey, can we grab a cup of coffee and talk about your experiences? But I can always be like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? Because then I feel like I'm giving them value and not just taking value, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And then I just it's better than a picture. That's what my friend said the other.
I like that.
She's like, the podcast episode is better than a picture.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I know you have so many like life lessons and quotes, but specifically from this journey that you've been on, what would you like to share?
I think the simple. This might be the one that I used last time. The
Okay.
journey of 1,000 miles begins with one
That
step.
was the one, and it really is
But that's
appropriate.
it. But like I've never felt a stronger personification than climbing that mountain.
Yeah.
Like I just took one step really slow, and then another really short step really slow, and then
Mhm.
another, and now all of a sudden I'm looking down on the whole world. 8 hours is not that long.
Right, to get to that kind of experience.
It's not that long.
Yeah.
You spend 8 hours at a place that most people spend at least 8 hours most
At
days
their desk.
at a place they don't like.
Yeah, literally, where you're just literally feel like your soul is being sucked from
Here
you.
at least I get to, I believe everything you're doing is a choice. Just the same way you could have chosen to not leave your job, you chose to leave your job.
Right.
But
If
you're
you're not
really
if you're
you
not changing it, you're choosing it. That's what
yes,
I heard.
yes, and you are knee deep in choice once you
Yeah.
are on a mountain. Once you're on a
Yeah.
mountain side.
I've always thought that, and you can tell me if you think this is true too, but I always thought that like having that experience, like life after that seems easier in a sense.
It's just different.
It's just
Like
different.
it,
It's a
it
transformative
it's
experience.
very transformational. It's very,
Okay.
I literally got my Phoenix done. Like,
Oh, after.
no, before.
Oh, before.
I had but like 3 weeks before,
Yeah.
and
So
I didn't
excited.
realize that was why.
I feel like I want to be part of this club. This club. I feel like there's like a small group of like humans who've experienced,
Yep,
going to a summit and like
yep. And
this is something
because once you get used to that, you get used to being around those sorts of people, and you
changes your world.
realize that the people around you have a big influence on who you are. I want to be
100%.
around people that breathe thin air.
Yeah.
I've always loved the metaphor, but now I've felt the reality of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I want people like that.
Yeah.
Like I want to be around more people like that, and like again, I got to. You only get to feel like you're definitely in the right place so many times in life, and
Yeah.
it was something I gave a lot of gratitude the night, the dinner before climb. I spoke up and spoke to the group, and like, guys, I was 19. It took me 19 years to have the feeling of I was in the right place,
But wasn't it worth the wait?
and then I got hurt and I lost it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how fleeting these moments can be.
Yeah.
And now I'm here sitting at this table at 34, knowing I'm exactly in the right place with the right people. And I just want to thank you guys all for being here. And thank you for being you. Nobody was there trying to be bigger than they were or trying to be bigger than the group. And it was, like I said, because you don't have room for that shit that high up. Like, you don't. And going out and chasing these experiences magically puts you in the room with higher level people.
Yeah.
Higher level experiences require higher level choices, and higher level people make those choices.
So cool.
And so, like, but you making your own choices, you're subconsciously going to be filtering out suboptimal people out of I'd say it like that, but no one's for everyone.
Right.
Mother
Oh,
Teresa,
I've learned that. I'm in the dating world. Believe me, I've learned
like
that.
I always, I do love the quote, you're an ass, everyone's an asshole in someone's story.
Oh,
But
100%.
Mother Teresa's a bad guy to someone.
Yeah.
Like,
Hard to imagine, but
somebody met Mahatma Gandhi and we're like, prick. Like
yeah.
somebody felt that
Caught
way
them on the
about him.
wrong day.
Wrong. No, they're probably just upset with himself and don't believe him. That's usually
Yeah.
how it goes.
Self-projection.
Yep.
Okay. So last thing, what can we do to support you and what you're currently working on? What would you like to?
Um, Shoot me a follow on Instagram.
Mhm.
I'm working there. I've recently launched my own training company called CWCW Performance.
Yes, you're wearing the merch right
I've
now.
I've got one of my hats on. I do have. If maybe you're not looking for coaching, but you want to support, I've got a handful of hats and beanies. Got a really cool basketball jersey I put out this year. That I was really proud of. So I've launched a training company. So like I said, I'm really trying to center it around the things that make the things you want to do better.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking for the biggest return on investment you can make in your life,
Mhm.
and let's get after it.
I love it.
All it requires is some honesty and some commitment. And my goal is to coach you well enough you don't need me anymore. I even have a service where I work with people to write their own programming,
That's
and I will
awesome.
and so it's say it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than hiring me as a full-time coach. And we meet once a month and we work on your program, and I advise and consult and teach you how to learn and how to program, and eventually you're not going to need me anymore.
Right.
And that's my goal.
Yeah.
A lot of people need a lot of help.
Mhm.
Can't, you know,
Be there for everyone
I,
like that.
exactly. So it's better, to teach me how to fish.
Well, also as someone who had a life coach, I actually graduated myself from my life coach this past February.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I felt it was such a great relationship. I feel like I could have gained from him, well, from Jeff
Yeah, Vex.
for the rest of my life. He's just one of those guys that always
Hmm.
adds value. But I felt like I had reached a point where, listen, if I wasn't going to do it, it wasn't going to happen. So I just had to show up for myself. He can motivate me from today till tomorrow, but I'm the one who needs to show up.
Correct.
And the other thing is I felt like my whole life since I've started going to the gym at 21, I've always had a trainer or a coach, and I needed to be able to show up for myself and not because someone was
There.
waiting to hear from me. And with Jeff, it was kind of a little bit getting there because he had created those programs for me, and we met like in person once a week or every other week. But I was at the gym myself. So we were kind of leaning towards this anyways. But I needed to make sure that I was showing up for me in my life without anyone holding me accountable. I needed to learn to be accountable for me.
Perfect. And again, that's a big staple
Yeah.
of what I'm doing with that. And so, yeah, if you're looking for something or interested in talking, I'd love to have a conversation about how I can add some value
Yeah.
to what you're doing. Or again, like so, we talked about life shifts and all that sort of stuff. Like I don't know how, like I've experienced it a lot, and I've done it. I've learned how to do it on purpose, and
Yeah.
I've learned how to teach people and work with people how to do it on purpose. So there's that side of it. That's a great way to support me. Again, a follow is great. This is 2024, almost 2025.
Yep.
And then from there, if you could check out my campaign with ROMP, Range of Motion Project. Like I said, I
Yeah.
still have about $2,400 that I need to raise for my commitment this year. You can go to go to my Instagram. I'm assuming that'll be linked, but if we could link my donation page as well, that would be
Absolutely.
fantastic. The work these people are doing is so massively important.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not here without the mobility I got from my prosthetic.
You know what? Maybe we can cross collab with that because with my coffee shop, I'm trying to, I give 10% of all my proceeds to like a different charity a month.
Oh, that would be incredible.
So maybe we can do like a cross-branded thing where it's like you promote like Café and then I
Easy,
that month will be dedicated to
easy.
but this was such a great episode.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. It was a long one, but it was such a valuable one. So I was so excited about it. And literally the whole
I
time,
am, yes, this is,
yeah,
thank you so much.
yeah,
This is the first, I would assume it's not the last, but the first one I've gotten to come on and just talk about the mountain climbing.
yeah.
It's just different.
I had a feeling I was the first podcast
Yep.
episode that was, and
Yep.
I was
And
like, I wanted to grab you
yep.
first.
I knew it. I could tell the energy and the message like, yep,
Yeah.
we're doing this.
Yeah. I was like, I needed to be there first. But yeah, so if you guys are not subscribed already, please subscribe on YouTube. That's mainly where I'm trying to get subscribers. Because once you have 500, you get paid. And
Oh,
then
really? Because mine is just under that.
really, yeah, so it's 500 that you get paid.
Yeah. I haven't posted in like a year, but
I'm at 81. Yeah, you should.
yes.
I'm at 81 right now. And then also we're on all of the platforms. So if you want to see the video, it's on Spotify and YouTube. And if you are interested in getting some of the Lake Cafe coffee, it is so good. I am obsessed. I've talked about it in a lot of my episodes, but truly, like, it's not just a business push. Like, this is my passion. So it's at thelakecafe.us is our, or thelakecafe.us is our handle on Instagram. And then it's uh, lakecafe.us is our link. I'll do all the links. I can't remember all of them. There's too many. But thank you guys so much. Have a great week. Let's get it. Let's go.